Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, we're plowing full speed ahead here on this Thursday morning in your nation's capital. Thanks for tuning in. It's 6:07 on O'Connor and Company. Coming up in 30 minutes, we're going to hear from Shawn Carney. He's the CEO of 40 Days for Life, and the whole free abortions being offered to the DNC participants. Well, that might put Planned Parenthood in trouble with the IRS. We'll talk to Shawn Carney about it. Also at 7:35, Steve Moore will reflect on the cooking of the books over jobs numbers for the Biden-Harris administration. 8:05, KT McFarland will give us thoughts on how the Democrats stand up with foreign policy. And then we'll wrap things up at 8:35 with Phil Wegman at Real Clear Politics. We're joined also all morning long by the effervescent, I don't know why I keep saying effervescent, but you are kind of bubbly in the way your approach
I like that
to our
descriptor.
job. Mollie Hemingway, of course, she's the editor-in-chief of The Federalist and a regular there on Fox News Channel. Although, thankfully, you don't have to be in Chicago right now to our benefit right now since you're here in D.C.
Not getting tear gassed,
Exactly.
by covering protests.
Oh, and having to deal with it. Have you seen the security lines that they're dealing with? Having to get in. Even the media has to go through all this rigmarole.
I'm finding it interesting that they have security. They have really well-enforced security.
Triple
a border,
fences, yeah.
They have police, a full police presence, and they're requiring ID to get in. All things that I thought that Democrat Party was opposed to.
Walls don't work, Mollie. Just keep telling yourself that. It's very unwelcoming, those xenophobic DNCers. All right, a huge development. We told you a little bit about it yesterday, but we want to expand on this conversation because there's been some developments, and that has to do with the prospect of independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. opting out of the presidential race and then throwing his support to Donald Trump. His running mate, Nicole Shanahan, appeared on a podcast and laid out the two options that are in front of them right now.
There's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Walt's presidency because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump and we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision.
Now, any frequent listener to this program knows that it's not beneath me to point out the infuriating up-talking and vocal fry. Could we come on, for God's sake, you're a public speaker. Stop with the vocal fry. I'm sorry, Mollie. It's just a thing of mine. That said, this has created a little bit of a political earthquake in this presidential race, partly because of the reason why the Kennedy campaign is contemplating this. But first, I'd love for your initial thoughts on the prospect of this happening.
Well, it's just interesting whenever there's a viable third-party candidacy. And I mean by that not that there's any threat that RFK Jr. is going to win the presidency, but he's been drawing support.
At least 5% in battleground states. Some of the battleground states, he's up to 7% or 8%.
And this matters in a close election, which I think most people think this will be a close election. And so he does have some power here, and he's looking at how to use it best.
Yeah. And again, the reason for this, I think, is most important. Listen to Nicole Shanahan lay out the reality that the Democrats have sabotaged the democratic process.
I did not put in tens of millions of dollars to be a spoiler candidate. I put in tens of $millions to win, to fix this country, to do the right thing. I will say that Clear Choice, this PAC, this DNC-aligned PAC that was created specifically to take us out, has spent millions of dollars to take us out. They have unfortunately turned us into a spoiler. And we don't want to be a spoiler. We wanted to win. We wanted a fair shot.
She's going to get into the details of what this super PAC Clear Choice has done. And this is all Democrat dark money, millions and millions of dollars funneled into super PACs with one purpose, and that is to sabotage this campaign or that campaign. The details of how they're doing that are important. We'll get to it. But first, this is not a new development. Democrats have mastered this art, haven't they, Mollie?
It's so interesting given that the rhetoric from the Democrat Party is that they support democracy, that other people are a threat to democracy. But beginning with the primary race, where they did not allow RFK Jr., lifelong Democrat, to even be part of that Democratic primary process because they wanted Joe Biden to be the nominee. And then once Joe Biden became the nominee and RFK Jr. was doing really well, they devoted all their resources to keeping him off the ballot in states that matter. And that's not a new thing. Going back to 2016, when Democrats thought that third parties cost Hillary Clinton the election in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, they have devoted a lot of resources to removing options from the American people for voting.
Your post-2020 election book, Rigged, which is incredibly important reading because it's not about voting machines and that kind of thing. This is about all the stuff that they've been able to game the system to rig an election that ostensibly is legal, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you hit on this stuff.
This is a great example of it. So in 2020, Democrats thought that third-party candidates, which included the Green Party and even like Kanye West, were a threat to Joe Biden winning.
Remember Hillary saying that Jill Stein was a Russian operative? It's all the same playbook and Tulsi Gabbard, all that. Yeah.
So they spent a lot of money to keep them off the ballot in those states and to just and it was like for absolutely absurd reasons. They would say, oh, we're challenging this filing because the signature doesn't match with who it was supposed to be. You know, things that if they did it with actual elections would be a major issue.
Right, you're not supposed to look at the matching signatures on ballots, but on the petition to get someone on the ballot.
With Kanye West, they said he was something like 13 or 17 seconds too late with his filing. So had to be before 5 o'clock on the dot, and he was like 5 o'clock and 13 seconds. And it worked, and it did make a difference in a very close election.
All right, so knowing that, listen to Nicole Shanahan describe what and I love the fact that the Super PAC's name is Clear Choice, what they did to the Kennedy campaign.
The DNC made that impossible for us. They have banned us, shadow banned us, kept us off stages, manipulated polls, used lawfare against us, sued us in every possible state. They've even planted insiders into our campaign to disrupt it and to create actual legal issues for us. I mean, the extent by which the sabotage they've unleashed upon us, it's mind-blowing. I mean, we're still learning new ways that they have sabotaged us. I really wanted a fair shot at this election, and I believed in the America that a little girl pledged an allegiance to. And that is not where we are today, and it's not because of the Republican Party taking us out. It is exclusively because of the Democratic Party.
All right, so that's a stunning message. So it's not just Kennedy deciding, all right, I don't have a chance, so I'm going to drop out and I'll just bargain with Trump and get a deal. No, the message is the Democrats have sabotaged and thwarted the democratic process. They don't want the American people to have a legitimate choice, and they have utilized the levers of power and big money and lawfare and courts to try to stop their political opponents. By the way, he'll be saying that on stage next to Donald Trump, who's been facing court battles after court battles after court battles after the Russian collusion hoax. That's a powerful message that the Democrats have to deal with, I would think.
It's a very powerful message. You've seen Democrats repeatedly say that if they lose, that's a threat to democracy. This is seeing that in action, that's how they've redefined democracy. For a lot of Americans, they're looking at this and saying, I don't like weaponizing courts to take out political opponents. I don't like removing fair playing fields where people can just compete with their ideas. We've got a completely idea-less convention going on right now. Like, other than, I guess, abortion, there's not a lot of policy being talked about. But Americans still believe in self-government. They still believe that democracy matters and that being a constitutional republic matters. And that will be a powerful message. By the way, this is massive news, and it's not getting a ton of play in corporate media.
Wait, the Democrats planted people inside the Kennedy campaign? I would think an intrepid investigative reporter at the Washington Post would actually sort of pull on that string and find out some more information about it, but not so much. All right, more on this, on what might happen, because as I said, there's a development now. Kennedy has announced he's going to be making a major significant announcement this Friday. Where it's going to happen is significant as well. And whether this is a good thing or a bad thing for the election and a potential Trump administration. We'll get to all that in a moment. First, though, it's 6:15. Oh, it's 6:16. Let's get straight to Steve Hirshorn in the Hadig.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Coming on the heels of a Democrat convention where a woman is being placed in the presidential nomination slot without the benefit of one person voting, Joe Biden, the person that was actually voted as the nominee by Democrat voters over the course of the last 6 months, just he was forced off the ticket. I was about to say he unilaterally abandoned his, but he was forced to abandon his rightful nomination. And major funders and a couple of very powerful power brokers have basically engineered this new ticket of Harris Walz. You let that play out through tonight, and then tomorrow you have Robert F. Kennedy standing up saying the Democrats are corrupt. The Democrats have rigged this system, and they've done everything they can to just force this ticket on you and keep me out as an option. It's so bad. I don't actually agree with Donald Trump on a whole lot politically, but he's a lot better than what's going on over here, and I'm throwing my support there. That's powerful, I think. Do those people who were instinctively voting for Robert F. Kennedy, who I think are in their heart Democrats, did they follow him? Do enough of them follow him to make a difference for Trump?
I think he speaks to a group of people who really do feel that there are things that are broken about the system that runs things in Washington, D.C., and they feel it so deeply that I do think it might be a compelling message for them. You know, whether it's about the pharmaceutical industry and its role in controlling things and how policy is made, or anything else. But the Democrats have decided that they don't want to be a party for those types of voters, and so it's almost as much a rejection by the Democrat Party as it is an embrace of RFK Jr.
That's fair. And listen, I've been saying for a while, because there has been this weird crossover and overlap of Trump people who have a great admiration for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and like a lot of things that he said about the COVID vaccine, certainly, and other aspects of big tech and spying and the overreach of the intelligence agencies, et cetera. And he has reason to believe. As a Kennedy, I think he has reason to have those concerns. That said, he's a radical liberal. I mean, he is against carbon emissions and he's against fossil fuels, and he's utilized the courts to push a green agenda on the American people. That concerns me. I don't want him near the levers of power with that kind of ideology.
And it might be why we don't see a unity ticket, or a unity between RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. There are just so many differences on policy, and the types of differences that really matter to Republican voters and also really matter to his supporters.
Oh, Trump says drill, baby, drill every moment he can, and Kennedy can't be on board with that given his track record with the EPA and as an environmental lawyer.
But having said all that, you build a coalition out of what you can.
Thank you. I've been thinking about this, and again, I've been wrestling with it, Mollie Hemingway, but the fact of the matter is we Americans are kind of naive about this. In other governments, especially parliamentary systems like Great Britain and Israel, unity governments are formed all the time because you got to get that majority for your guy to be the prime minister. So Netanyahu makes deals with these little fractional political parties that only bring about 5% to the table, but it's enough to get the majority. And yeah, they have a seat at the table, not a big seat at the table. Same thing happens in England all the time. So maybe this is the way to get power.
That's what I would do if I were RFK Jr. I'd figure out the one thing that I really think I can get out of Donald Trump and say, I'll throw my support behind you if I can get this one thing.
And so what that one thing is critical. Trace Gallagher, like him a lot. He's an anchor at Fox News. He does Fox News at night now. He had Nicole Shanahan on the show, and he asked that question, what exactly will this look like? Listen to what Nicole Shanahan, and by the way, I think it's also instructive that she's the one doing all the talking right now, the running mate, Nicole Shanahan, instead of Kennedy. He's sort of been laying low and made this announcement that he's going to come out with a big statement tomorrow. Listen to what she says about what their priorities are. She named two things about their priorities for potentially joining forces with Donald Trump.
It's interesting because you were saying that you could stay in and run the risk of Kamala Harris win, or you could walk and you could join forces with Donald Trump. When you say join forces, Nicole, what do you mean specifically?
Well, this idea of a unity party, an idea of us coming around these principles of fighting for liberty in this country, fighting for our children's health. We have the worst chronic health crisis in the world right now. Over 50% of children are diagnosed with some chronic disease. This is unconscionable. Yeah. And we are willing to work with anyone who is sincere in their endeavor to fix and address this issue.
That's it. Liberty, which I think extrapolates into a body and health autonomy from the regime that we saw during the pandemic and the vaccinations, et cetera, and children's health, the chronic health problems that children have. And I think extrapolated into that has to do with the over-pharmaceutical agenda for children. I mean, if you're talking about that, you're talking about getting our kids healthy, getting nutrition back, growing. He talks about agricultural initiatives here in the United States, so we're not relying on other countries for our livestock. Count me in. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, these are things that would not be a problem for people who are already voting for Donald Trump, and might even be a way to be
a benefit.
To build the party. So not a bad idea.
So tomorrow, Kennedy has said, I'm giving a speech, major announcement tomorrow in Phoenix, Arizona. Coincidentally or not coincidentally, Donald Trump is also in Phoenix, Arizona. He's doing an event with Charlie Kirk's Turning Point group. What do you think happens?
I'm just really hoping that, I shouldn't even say it, but really hoping that the Secret Service is on its A game there with those two individuals speaking.
Fair to say. It's 624.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:36 here as we plow through this very busy Thursday morning. Thanks for being part of what we're doing, and thanks for letting us be, well, sort of your sidekick this morning as you get the kids ready for school. Hey, Loudoun County starts school today. Sorry, kids. It's all right. Everything's going to be fine. Coming up at 7:35, Steve Moore, Heritage Foundation, 8:05, KT McFarland, and at 8:35, Phil Wegman with Real Clear Politics. It says Philip here. Is he doing the Philip thing now, Mollie Hemingway?
I like Philip. I think that's
love him. He's fantastic.
No, I mean, I like the name, Philip.
Oh, you like the name Philip, but you don't like Phil Wegman. You actually hate him.
Worst.
He's your arch enemy. And that's Mollie Hemingway. I'm Larry O'Connor, and joining us right now is... from 40 Days for Life, Shawn Carney. Mr. Carney, thanks for joining us.
Good to be back. Good morning.
We're getting all of these stories about how the Planned Parenthood has set up this RV. This is the most ghoulish, despicable thing. Bill Clinton was on the stage last night, and this is a guy who lied his way through 2 elections in the 90s, saying that he wanted abortions to be safe, legal, and rare. But last time I checked, they didn't do much about safe and rare. It was just about keeping it legal. But we've come a long way from Bill Clinton's party, Shawn Carney, because now Planned Parenthood is literally offering free abortions for people in an RV outside the DNC. But you, on behalf of 40 Days for Life, are suggesting that this could be a problem for Planned Parenthood legally.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, you're right. I mean, gone are the days of safe, legal, and rare. Clinton was a pro-life governor of Arkansas and then, of course, became pro-abortion and ran for president. And he's like, I don't like abortion. I want it safe, legal, and rare. And that's a joke now to where this is their vision of America at the DNC, that free abortions and vasectomies, which is like a hopeful message that would make Tony Robbins jump off a cliff. It's so depressing. It's so dire. And it's illegal. I mean, they are a 501c3, so on Tuesday we filed a official complaint to the IRS against Planned Parenthood because you can't go. They're bragging about it publicly. It's completely reckless. 501c3 nonprofits, it's common sense. You can't go and offer free services and in-kind gifts to a political party or candidates, and that's why we filed this against Planned Parenthood to the IRS, an official complaint.
Shawn Carney, Mollie Hemingway here, and I'm sure the IRS will get right on processing that complaint against Planned Parenthood.
They will be defunded by this evening, I'm sure.
But it is interesting how the Democrat convention has not had much in the way of policy. They're not talking about what's happened in the last 3.5 years with the economy or with foreign policy or with border or with crime, but they are talking a lot about their desire for abortion nationwide with no restrictions throughout all 9 months of pregnancy. That is the one policy issue that they are very focused on. So does Planned Parenthood being there, I mean, that does seem to be a shared mission between the two. The other thing that the Democrats are talking about are the importance of trans surgeries for children, which is another thing that Planned Parenthood makes a lot of money off of. So there is a unity of purpose here between Planned Parenthood and the Democrat Party, right?
There's no doubt. And they're running Kamala, as if she's a challenger, right? I mean, she's been there for 3.5 years. So it is awkward from that standpoint. But she's doing something no candidate either side has ever done, which is make abortion the number one priority. For or against, no one's done that. Typically, Americans don't like it when the culture war is the number one issue. They want other things to be at the top of the ticket for better, for worse. And they're running on that. But even with that, Molly, you're not getting a lot of policy. You're getting it sort of shoved down your throat, which abortion, even if you support it, you don't really want to talk about it for an hour every night at the DNC. But that it's one thing to support abortion philosophically or through policy, but to do abortions at the DNC, to have people dressed up in costumes as abortion pills, abortion is serious. And that is just so out of touch with the women who have had an abortion, whether they regret it or not. They take it seriously. It's not a joke that requires a costume to celebrate.
We're speaking with Shawn Carney. He's the CEO of 40 Days for Life. And I would love to get back to the legal aspects of this. So Planned Parenthood specifically went to the DNC. They're doing, you're basically calling this whole demonstration, the whole public posture supporting legalized abortion in America as an in-kind gift to the Democrats, right? That basically, by amplifying this, they are basically giving an in-kind gift because the Democrats don't need to talk about abortion because they got Planned Parenthood doing the heavy lifting for them.
Yeah, and it's not the world according to us. It's their own language where they say this, not only on Twitter but on their website, and so that's the evidence against them is their own language is a clear violation. They didn't go to the RNC and say we support all women, we want to offer free abortions and vasectomies. They targeted the DNC specifically, and you just can't do that as a 501c3. It's very reckless, by the way. This is like common sense for all 501c3 nonprofits, and Planned Parenthood just totally blew that off and announced this and bragged about it.
Any response from the IRS, as Mollie alluded to there? I'm sure they're very receptive to this kind of thing.
Well, we will get a response. I mean, we filed it Tuesday, and so we will get a response, and we're calling for an investigation into this.
Shawn Carney, they also were saying that in this mobile van where they're providing abortions, they're also providing vasectomies for the male delegates who are attending the DNC. It seems not the wisest thing to perform that in a van outside of the DNC. Like, that's medically perhaps not the ideal.
I'm having to
location.
cross my legs at the thought of it, Mollie.
Yeah, no. I hope they have a lot of ice water. It's very awkward to do that in a van, or generally, I would say. But that is. But think about this though. This is the DNC. This isn't some weird, conference that nobody's ever heard of out in Oregon. This is the DNC, and their message is free abortions and free vasectomies. So these conventions are to cast a vision for our country, and the vision for them is literally sterile.
Yeah, that is the big vision. When they talk about freedom, the only thing they're talking about is the freedom to end the lives of your offspring or to prevent offspring. But do you think Republicans are doing a good job of countering this message of abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy or sterility? The pro-life movement has always been a big supporter of the Republican Party because that's the party that supports ending violence in the womb against children and their mothers. But have they really capitalized on that this year? It seems they're kind of off the playing field themselves.
Well, I thought Trump did a pretty good job in the debate against Biden because he showed the graphic nature of abortion, and he pointed out that they wanted abortion, that Roe allowed abortion through all 40 weeks. So I thought that was good. In 2022, they really botched it, pun intended. But the pro-life Republicans who owned it won by DeSantis, Governor Abbott in Texas, where I live, Governor Kemp. They all had heartbeat bills. They didn't apologize for the Supreme Court, and they owned it, and they won by huge margins. Weak Republicans lost and should have in 2022, so I think they need to take that example.
Yep, the issue is still a winning issue. You just need to be a winning candidate to be able to articulate it. Shawn, Carney, thanks for joining us. 40 Days for Life. I appreciate it. Give us an update when you hear back from the IRS.
Will do. Thank y'all.
It's 6:45 WMAL.
Later this morning on the Chris Plant Show, the Democrats have gathered in Chicago.
Burn it down! Burn it down!
I don't think they like us. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
6:50 now, and spinning off of that last topic here about this shameful and just sort of grotesque display at the DNC with Planned Parenthood offering free abortions and free vasectomies to people. One really amusing thing happened yesterday at the DNC, and this has to do with undercover conservatives who have sort of infiltrated the entire proceeding. Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy, he shaved his mustache, made a big social media thing about that. Did you see the Mike Lindell with the shaved mustache?
He looks unrecognizable.
Completely, which is kind of the point, I guess, when you're going. It tells you how important that mustache is to your appearance. So Mike Lindell shaves his mustache, puts on a pair of sunglasses, unrecognizable. He runs into this guy. He's like Harry Sisson, is like 22 years old. He's an internet personality, social media personality, who's literally paid to lie about how much he loves Democrats. And Mike Lindell sees him on an escalator, grabs his cell phone, starts the video, and here's what happened.
A proven sexual abuser, convicted felon.
Harry Sisson, have you gotten your vasectomy yet? I think that's what the audience wants to know.
Have you got your vasectomy yet? Did you get your vasectomy? Were you aborted? Did your mom get your I prayed for you that your mom did not abort.
By the way, he was connected to, is it War Room, Steve Bannon's show that Steve, of course, is unavailable to host at the moment. And so she's asking him, here, ask him this, ask him that, ask him if he's gotten his vasectomy.
What is that show that my kids watch where there's someone behind a curtain who's telling people what to say? And
practical jokes.
Yeah, very funny.
Meanwhile, on CNN, they were doing a live hit on the floor.
The more they see her, the more they're going to like her. I saw what she did.
Caitlin Collins talking to Chuck Schumer here. And in the background, there's this guy who keeps sort of dropping into the shot wearing a Kamala Harris hat and all this stuff. It was Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire in his anti-racist hippie outfit.
Okay, so speaking of how facial hair can completely change the way you look, I love this new costume or whatever from Matt Walsh. He's doing a movie called Am I a Racist?
Yeah.
And to go undercover, all he did was add glasses and like a long ponytail.
Yes.
And again, people are like, I have no idea who this person is. But it has been hilarious because there have been so many shots of him just kind of like slowly walking behind people at the DNC.
Right.
He was also handing out people cards saying like to get information, basically luring people into getting information about his new movie, which is about to come out.
Card says, scan this for the truth about Project 2025. And of course, and then it sends you to the Am I a Racist movie from Daily Wire. No, it's great trolling. And James O'Keefe, the master of undercover investigative work, he's been in disguise his entire time at the DNC as well. And he said that he's got video dropping today of what he uncovered there. So, I mean,
I can't wait to see it. Also, though, what's being said on stage is so insane that I'm not sure how much crazier it can get undercover.
You don't need to go undercover and get this stuff. But part of me, my heart sort of is very tender for this sort of thing because it's very Breitbartian. And I think Andrew would celebrate all of this behavior. It's fun, raucous, happy warrior stuff. It's 6:53.
Making sense of your world.
Greatly appreciated.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
I love listening to you.
Making sense of the news.